Everything changed that early morning in July. The sky had a different glow over the endless fields of Idaho. Security cameras recorded the exact moment green lights touched our genetically modified wheat plantations. I was there, alone in the monitoring center, observing something I should never have seen. I'm Thomas Wells, former senior operations supervisor at the largest farms in the United States. For 2 years, I had access to the highest levels of confidentiality at Bill Gates' rural properties. The agricultural empire he built has always fascinated the media and fueled theories about its true purpose. No one imagined that reality would surpass any speculation. My routine included supervising hectares of high-tech plantations, monitoring productivity data, and coordinating specialized teams. The pay was extraordinary, the benefits were tempting, and the prestige of working for one of the most influential men on the planet initially blinded me to the signs. Everything seemed perfectly normal at first glance. Corporate meetings, detailed reports, ambitious production goals. But little by little, inexplicable events began to accumulate. Areas suddenly isolated for maintenance, mysterious shipments during the night, employees who disappeared without explanation. The point of no return happened when I found a forgotten pen drive in a restricted room in the underground complex. Its contents revealed a plot that connected genetic food modification, population control, and a hidden agenda that transcends our current understanding of power and influence. Now I am in hiding, using secure networks to share this message. I have evidence, documents, and records that expose a plan developed over decades. A project that uses our own food as a Trojan horse for a silent invasion. This is not just another conspiracy theory. It's my personal testimony about something I witnessed and documented, risking my life in the process. Over the next few hours, I will reveal every detail of what I discovered on Bill Gates's farms and how it connects to a larger plan that will affect the destiny of humanity. What you are about to hear will forever change your perception of who really controls our food chain. And most importantly, who or what is it being prepared for? My path to Gates Farms began 5 years ago when I specialized in agricultural biotechnology. Among hundreds of candidates, I was selected through a peculiar process that included advanced psychological tests and interviews with experts in areas that were completely outside the agricultural scope. The main complex in Idaho is a stunning architectural masterpiece. Outside, steel and glass silos reflect the sunset, creating an almost futuristic vision of modern agriculture. Autonomous drones constantly fly over the plantations, collecting data through sensors that I have never seen on other farms. In the first few months, the fascination with technology overshadowed crucial details. The underground laboratories, which occupy an area 3 times larger than the visible facilities, operate 24 hours a day. Access is controlled by an advanced biometric system, and each level requires specific credentials that few possess. The contrast between the environments is stark. While the administrative areas exhibit a calculated transparency with glass walls and open spaces, the lower levels are a labyrinth of hermetically sealed corridors. The air there has a peculiar metallic odor, and the walls seem to absorb any sound. Each employee receives a special tablet for internal communication. Personal cell phones are prohibited beyond the main lobby. Surveillance cameras cover every inch of the complex, except in certain rooms where even security guards are not allowed to enter. Scientists working at the deepest levels rarely interact with other employees. They wear different uniforms with identification devices that emit a bluish glow. Their conversations stop abruptly when someone approaches, and their gazes carry a mixture of fear and resignation. At night, the complex comes to life in a different way. Lights flash in specific patterns in the fields, and unmarked vehicles arrive and depart without official records. The security system seems more focused on keeping people away from certain areas than protecting the outer perimeter. Gradually, I realized that I wasn't just working on a tech farm. It was within something much larger, an operation whose true purpose remained hidden even from its own employees. Over time, I developed a sixth sense for detecting irregularities. The first clue came from soil analyses. The samples contained compounds that were impossible to catalog in our standard system. Technicians dismissed this data as reading errors, but the frequency of these errors increased every week. During the early hours of the morning, high-pitched sounds echoed across the fields. The region's animals, once abundant, have completely disappeared. Birds avoided flying over our plantations, creating a void in the sky that contrasted with the neighboring farms. Executive meetings followed a disturbing pattern. Always at 3:33 in the morning, a select group of scientists met underground. Through the frosted glass, shadows moved in unnatural ways. The voices that leaked through the hallways didn't sound entirely human. Our agronomists began reporting anomalies in plant growth. Wheat reached maximum height in half the normal time. The ears showed bluish colors under certain lighting. Even stranger, some crops seemed to react to sound stimuli as if they were sensitive to specific frequencies. A colleague from the research department disappeared after questioning the origin of certain equipment. The company claimed urgent transfer, but its name was completely erased from the records. His family also moved suddenly, leaving no contacts. Distribution trucks began to circulate exclusively on moonless nights. Its routes avoided urban centers, following patterns that defied any logistical logic. The most intriguing thing, they returned empty, but with a considerable weight registered on the scales. In the cafeteria, I noticed that the executives never consumed the food produced on our farms. Their meals came in special packaging, with codes that did not correspond to any known supplier. The final straw was finding a forgotten report detailing population adaptation rates. The graphs showed frightening downward curves for the coming years. In the margin of the document, a note in phosphorescent ink read, Phase 1. Human soil preparation. At that moment, I realized that I needed to document everything. I was no longer just witnessing corporate wrongdoing. I was facing something that threatened humanity itself. July 15th, 23:45. The monitoring system recorded a power outage throughout the West Wing. Following protocol, I scrolled down to level B3 to check the backup generators. The air was different, charged with a static electricity that made the hairs on your arms stand up. In the main corridor, a restricted elevator was unlocked, something unheard of in 2 years of work. The panel indicated movement in the last basement, a level that officially did not exist in the installation's plans. The adrenaline overcame the fear, and I made the decision that would change everything. The elevator took me to a surreal environment, a gigantic circular laboratory stretched beneath the plantations. In the center, a crystalline structure pulsed with its own light. Scientists in special suits surrounded what looked like a containment capsule. Through the armored glass, I observed a scene that defied reality. Humanoid beings with grayish skin and oversized eyes manipulated our seeds using incomprehensible technology. The plants responded to their touch, mutating and developing impossible characteristics in a matter of seconds. Dr. Morrison, Director of Research, hurried into the room. His voice trembled as he reported, "Genetic adaptation is 40% higher than expected. Human soil will be ready ahead of schedule." One of the beings nodded in approval, communicating through luminous gestures emanating from his hands. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. My presence had been detected. In the panic of escaping, I managed to activate the camera on the special tablet, recording precious seconds of that forbidden meeting. The images were clear. Bill Gates wasn't just modifying food, he was preparing the Earth for new inhabitants. I ran through the hallways as the security system went into lockdown. Behind me, metallic voices ordered my capture. I managed to reach my office seconds before the full lockdown, hastily transferring files to an encrypted device. That night revealed the true nature of the project. It wasn't just about food control or population reduction. It was a gradual colonization plan, using our own food chain as a vector for biological transformation. Humanity was being prepared, modified through each meal for a future that no one had agreed to accept. Over the next few weeks, I became a shadow in the hallways of the facility. Every move needed to be meticulously calculated. I found that the security cameras had a scanning pattern at 3.7-second intervals, enough time for me to move between blind spots. I created my own documentation system, photographic records hidden in seemingly unimportant files, named as productivity reports. Audio recordings disguised as irrigation control spreadsheets. Each piece of evidence was vital, but potentially fatal if discovered. A pattern began to emerge in the documents I was able to access. Coded reports revealed a correlation between planting areas and genetic anomalies in the local population. Maps detailed points of energetic convergence, exactly where UFOs were sighted. I hacked the internal communication system using a security protocol flaw. Messages exchanged between higher levels mentioned a Seed Zero project and reconfiguration of Earth's DNA. Specific dates were cited, coinciding with major international agreements on food security. The crucial point came when deciphering an encrypted file from the main office. It contained agreements signed not just by Gates, but by a set of alien symbols. The document detailed a gradual transfer of planetary control using large-scale genetic modification through the food chain. I discovered secret laboratories where humans served as unwitting guinea pigs. Selected employees received specially modified foods, having their transformations meticulously documented. The changes were subtle but progressive, alterations in cellular structure that made them more compatible with a new biological order. Each discovery increased the weight of responsibility. He had in his hands evidence of a conspiracy that went beyond any existing theory. It wasn't just about population control or economic dominance. It was a plan to transform the human essence itself. The research needed to continue, but the siege was beginning to close. I noticed different looks from the security guards, cameras that seemed to follow me more insistently. Time was running out. The weight of the discoveries began to consume me inside. Every meal that passed through our production line meant thousands of people being altered without consent. I was part of this mechanism, even if now as a silent witness. Sleepless nights became routine. The images of that underground laboratory never left my mind. The faces of the scientists who voluntarily participated in the project haunted me. How could they knowingly collaborate with something so sinister? Have they also been modified to accept all of this? My family noticed the changes. My wife questioned my distant behavior, the deep, dark circles under my eyes, my startles at every sudden noise. I couldn't tell the truth, but every lie to protect them was like a stab to the conscience. The worst part was knowing that they, like everyone else, were already exposed to the plan through the food that reached the table. During meetings, he maintained a forced smile as we discussed production goals and absorption rates. Each number represented lives being changed. Each ascending graph signified another step towards the irreversible transformation of humanity. The heaviest guilt came from my initial inaction. How many clues did I ignore in the first few months? How many signs did I miss because I was dazzled by the salary and prestige? I now understood why I was chosen. My ambition had made me temporarily blind. The moral dilemma became suffocating: expose everything immediately and risk being silenced before gathering enough evidence, or continue collecting evidence while people continue to be changed. Each day of waiting meant more victims, but a hasty report would easily be discredited. One afternoon, I observed children visiting the public part of the farm. Their looks of wonder at technology devastated me. They represented the future that was being stolen, altered in its most fundamental essence. At that moment, I understood that I no longer had a choice. I needed to act regardless of the personal consequences. The question was no longer whether to expose the truth, but how to do so in such a way that no one could hide or deny the evidence. The first person I reached out to was Sarah Chen, a former lead researcher who left the project 6 months earlier. His sudden dismissal always puzzled the team. We met at an out-of-the-way cafe in Boise, where the security cameras were conveniently out of order. "They're everywhere," Sarah whispered, her hands shaking as she held the cup. "Hybrids already hold key positions in governments and corporations. I got samples of their DNA before they fled." She slid a flash drive across the table, disguised as a tourist keychain. Through Sarah, I met Marcus Rodriguez, a former national security agent who specializes in unexplained phenomena. We find ourselves in an abandoned warehouse. "Farms are just the tip of the iceberg," he revealed. "There are similar facilities in other countries. Gates is just an intermediary, a facilitator of the process." Marcus connected me with an underground network of investigators. Among them was Dr. Emily Watson, a geneticist who studied unexplained mutations in populations near farms. "Your data correlated perfectly with the distribution dates of our products. The most valuable contact came unexpectedly." A night shift janitor, James Sullivan, approached me in the parking lot. "I know what you discovered," he said, handing me a memory card. "I've been recording everything for years. No one suspects the old janitor." The footage he collected was stunning. Secret meetings, forbidden experiments, irrefutable evidence. An investigative journalist, Diana Torres, agreed to be our contingency. "If something happens to you, I have instructions to release everything," he assured. "Servers in different countries, impossible to be silenced simultaneously." The last contact was the most disturbing. A current scientist on the project, Dr. Harrison, came to me in a panic. "They accelerated the schedule," he warned. "Something will happen in the next few days. We need to act now." Hours after our meeting, his death was reported as a car accident. Each new contact increased our resistance network, but also the risks. I realized that we were putting together a bigger puzzle than our initial expectations. It wasn't just about Bill Gates or aliens. It was about a decades-long conspiracy involving multiple organizations and governments. Time was running out. With each new ally, it became clearer that we needed to act quickly. The transformation of humanity was already underway, and we were the only line of defense against a future that was silently approaching across the fields of modified wheat. The first blow came from where he least expected it. Lisa, my trusted assistant for 2 years, was an undercover. I found files on his computer detailing my every move over the past few months. Daily reports on my activities were sent directly to an encrypted folder on the central server. The network of trust began to crumble. Marcus Rodriguez disappeared after promising to hand over crucial documents. His apartment was empty, with clear signs of forced entry. In the place where the evidence was supposed to be, I only found an alien symbol drawn on the wall. Dr. Emily Watson contacted me in a panic. They found out everything, his message said. They altered my DNA samples, they tampered with the results. Years of research destroyed in one night. Before he could find her, she was admitted to a psychiatric clinic, diagnosed with persecutory delusions. The hardest blow came from inside the house. I noticed subtle changes in my wife's behavior, secret calls, unexplained meetings, hidden documents. One night, I caught her sending reports about my routine to a corporate email at Gates Farms. She had been co-opted, seduced by promises of directed evolution for our family. James, the janitor, was found dead at his post. The official cause, heart attack. But the security cameras that night mysteriously failed. His memory card, which contained crucial evidence, was missing. Sarah Chen tried to warn me. "Don't trust anyone," were his last words before disappearing. His apartment was emptied, records erased as if they had never existed. The only proof of his existence was the flash drive he gave me, now my only concrete evidence. Diana Torres, our journalist, revealed herself to be part of the scheme from the beginning. His contingency promise was a trap to identify everyone involved in the investigation. Backup servers never existed. In a matter of days, every supporting pillar was systematically destroyed. He was alone, surrounded by traitors and constant surveillance. But they had made a fatal mistake. Their betrayals only confirmed the scale of the conspiracy. Now, more than ever, I was determined to expose the truth. The siege began on a Tuesday. 3 black SUVs parked in front of my house. Men in suits watched every movement through sunglasses that reflected an unnatural greenish tint. Their postures were too rigid to be human. I received an encrypted email from Bill Gates himself. "Your contribution to the project was valuable, but your curiosity exceeded acceptable limits. There is still a chance to be part of the planned evolution. We await your response within 24 hours." At the office, my access was subtly restricted. Files started disappearing from the system. Security cameras automatically rotated in my direction. The air conditioning in my room began to release a slightly sweet gas, an obvious attempt at sedation. My cell phone picked up strange interference. Non-human voices whispered at barely audible frequencies. Precise coordinates of my location were transmitted every 30 seconds to an untraceable server. During lunch, I noticed changes in my food. The scan revealed biocompatible nanochips mixed into the meal. They were tracking devices and compulsory genetic modification, the last attempt to turn me into another puppet of the project. A maintenance team broke into my apartment. They searched every corner looking for Sarah's flash drive. In the process, they installed microscopic surveillance devices. Through small gaps in the walls, pulsating lights monitored every movement. My bank account has been blocked, cancelled credit cards. My digital identity began to be systematically erased. Within hours, it became impossible to buy fuel, food, or any essential items. The physical threat came at night. An advanced surveillance drone hovered over my house. Their technology was clearly not terrestrial. Beams of light scanned the room, looking for signs of electronic activity that might indicate where I stored the evidence. The final ultimatum arrived via a hologram projected into my room. A humanoid figure, partially translucent, materialized in the air. Your resistance is counterproductive. Transformation is inevitable. Choose, evolve with us, or be eliminated from the process. There was no more time for hesitation. The evidence I collected needed to be made public immediately. In a matter of hours, it would be too late. Not just for me, but for all of humanity. The escape plan I devised needed to be executed now. It was my only chance to expose the truth. I executed my plan at 3:33 a.m., the time of the secret meetings. Using Dr. Harrison's cloned badge, I accessed the restricted elevator. The underground corridors were eerily empty, an obvious trap but my only option. In the central laboratory, I found Bill Gates in person, surrounded by beings who no longer cared about maintaining human appearances. Their forms oscillated between physical states, emanating a bluish light that distorted the air around them. "You're persistent," Gates smiled, his voice mixing metallic tones, "but you've come too far for us to simply eliminate you. We want you to see the completed project before the end." A gesture from you activated holographic screens throughout the room. The images revealed the true scale of the operation. Similar farms on every continent, modified foods, systematically altering human DNA, preparing us for a convergence with their alien genes. Millions had already been transformed without knowing it. "The Earth was never exclusively yours," Gates continued. "We've only allowed them to develop to this point. Now, it's time to harvest." His skin began to peel off, revealing a crystalline structure underneath. While I was distracted by the presentation, they started uploading the last memories from Sarah's flash drive, but they made a crucial mistake. They connected to the main network to access the data. It was exactly what I expected. The virus I programmed began transmitting everything, not just my evidence, but all the project's secret files, to independent servers globally. Monitoring screens exploded with data leak alerts. Gates realized too late. "Stop him!" His voice now completely inhuman. Tentacles of pure energy emerged from the walls, trying to reach me. Creatures posing as security guards converged on the laboratory. I activated the last part of the plan, a localized electromagnetic pulse secretly developed with Sarah's help. The alien creatures faltered, their physical forms momentarily destabilizing. Security systems collapsed. In the ensuing chaos, I reached the emergency exit. Alarms sounded throughout the complex. Behind me, inhuman screams and desperate orders echoed through the halls. The truth was out there. There was no holding it back any longer. As I drove away from the facility, I saw intense lights rising into the sky, their ships left in strategic retreat. The first battle was won, but the war for humanity had just begun. I record this video from a secure location, using protected networks and untraceable connections. The events I witnessed at Gates Farms completely changed my perception of reality. Nothing is what it seems anymore. The data leak caused a domino effect. In recent weeks, similar facilities around the world have begun closing for maintenance. Bill Gates has made vague pronouncements about restructuring agricultural operations. The traditional media tries to minimize the evidence, but the truth is much bigger than them. I have more proof. Documents, recordings, and samples that demonstrate the true scale of this conspiracy. In the next few videos, I will gradually reveal each piece of this sinister puzzle. Each exposed file weakens their control over our reality. But I need your help. They will try to take down this channel, censor this information. The more people registered, the harder it will be to silence the truth. Each like increases our visibility. Each share strengthens our resistance. Sarah was able to contact me recently. She's alive in hiding, and she's discovered something even more disturbing about the next stage of their project. Soon, we will bring these revelations exclusively to subscribers of this channel. Comment Part 2 if you want to see the continuation of this story. Some nights, I look at the sky and see different starlights. They are still here, strategically retreating, reshaping their plans. But now, we are no longer blind. Every meal, every product we consume, can be part of your transformation strategy. My life will never be the same again. I live in constant movement, always one step ahead of them. But for the first time, I am not alone in this fight. You who watch this video now share this knowledge, and knowledge is our greatest weapon. In the coming days, weeks, and months, I will continue to expose each layer of this conspiracy. To have access to all future revelations, activate the notification bell. The truth can no longer be contained. Remember, they are watching, but now we are too. This is not the end of the story.